fundamentally, you have to just compete to provide more value, period. Like you have to bring more for less. You have to be able to do more in a day with the same amount of time. When interest rates go from 3 or 4% to 7%, your underwriting model looks a little bit different, and things are more stressed, and there's less real estate transacting, and
Yeah.
everything just changes when the price of capital changes as well. So there's downstream effects, and it's amplified when it's again a debt-based money, and everybody's highly levered, including the governments. These things will look so obvious to the everyday person in hindsight, like 50 years from now, like, oh yeah, obviously we can't settle with gold in the digital age, like obviously, and obviously, like why would people hold money that was currently like always debased.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the show. Running a small business today feels like playing a game where the rules keep changing. Costs go up, taxes go up, regulation increases, and somehow these businesses are expected to grow, hire, and compete. Today, we're joined by Sean McGrattan, Canadian small business owner, investor, and author of the Bitcoin Primer. We're going to ask him about money, inflation, entrepreneurship, and what it takes to build and survive in today's economy. Sean, hey, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me on, Michelle. Looking forward to it.
Yeah. And, I want to start with what does it actually feel like today to run a small business in 2026? And what have been some of the biggest changes that you've noticed over the past few years?
Well, I'd say going back a few years. So I've been with this company for about 7 years. So that started before COVID. And then obviously COVID was a shock and you had to pivot and adapt. And, we were closed down for a period of time and then back open. And, we did what we had to do to get through that. And still paying for that a little bit. But in another sense, there's kind of a new shock coming. It's always been coming and it's always been accelerating. But obviously, if you're following what's happening in AI and broader technology, things are moving quicker and quicker. And it's on our business and every other business that wants to be relevant into the future to try and provide your customers more for less, bring them more value, and compete, and be profitable. So, it's just that ever evolving, trying to leverage technology to bring more for less, essentially. And so, uh, our company in particular, we really had to peel things back and to a foundational level and get healthy and profitable again. And we're just at the phase now, I'd say in the last year or two, where we're building and looking to scale, hiring salespeople and building out teams to leverage. Yeah, we're a commercial sign business. I guess I should have said that. And so we serve, around the Toronto area for the most part, but we also go down into the US, across Canada, and it's a full solution provider.
So, yeah, you've touched upon AI. I was going to ask you about it as well. But just before you tell me more, since you mentioned the US, obviously every business of whatever size is very sensitive to regulation. How has the latest tariff situation impacted you and your plans?
For our business, cost of goods is up a little bit. Cost of goods in our business is typically around 20%. And so when one piece that goes in or a piece here and there, increases 5 or 20%, it's not detrimental. But I would just say more broadly, in Canada, and I'm sure lots of other places in the world, it's the economy and capital and investors and entrepreneurs don't like uncertainty, and there's no
Mm,
shortage of uncertainty. And so, Canada in particular, our economy's a little bit flat. Over the decades, we got away from being producers to more so consumers. We import more than we export. We're taking on perpetual deficits and growing debts. And just more broadly, our economy is pretty flat. And so it's just trying to get back to the basics of, that proof of work, which is you have to provide real value to the world to consume. And that's what
yeah.
real wealth building is. It's not in Canada. Our GDP and our economy has shifted more heavily to government spending. That's, about 40 or 45% of our GDP. And then you have
Mm.
real estate, which is us flipping houses and selling houses back and forth, and asset inflation. And then leveraging that asset inflation, you have more consumerism. taking on debt to go on the vacation, to buy that car. So it's just kind of we're getting away from the things that make you healthy and wealthy as a nation long term, like energy, infrastructure. We have lots of oil and natural gas. We have
Right.
everything that the world needs right now. For the digital age that we're entering and AI data centers, we've got it all. It's just it's an execution problem where we don't necessarily have the pipelines that we need. We don't have the port infrastructure that we need. We don't have the political will to get things done so that we can
Mm.
convert a resource rich country into a wealthy country where we extract, refine, and then export to the rest of the world and make our own economy more robust and more, self sufficient as well.
Yeah, that's very well said. And as an adopted Canadian myself, I've always been surprised by, let's say, the disconnect between Canada's wealth in terms of, like you said, resources, land, not just oil and gas. So many resources, such as water, all kinds of
Yeah.
wood as well.
Yeah.
It's always felt surprising to me that Canada is not um, like a big player in the G7 where it stands. When I see some numbers, it feels like Canada is always the last, and I don't think all these countries are already doing well to start with. So
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, it's always been
No,
something that
like
I find surprising.
imagine being, the second largest country in the world, having, all the oil, natural gas, rare earths, uranium, potash, farmland, fresh water, everything you need for electrification and copper and nickel and cobalt
Yeah.
and,
Mm.
everything you need for batteries. Like we have it all. And imagine being, neighbors to the most powerful economic country that the world's ever seen, and then still somehow, and having a structurally weaker Canadian dollar, making trade more attractive,
Mm.
um,
Right.
you know, for Americans to buy from us. We have all that, and still we have, people that feel like it's harder and harder to feed themselves, house themselves. We still have deficits and growing debts. We still import more than we export. Like how is that possible? you know, it's like we're
The
trying
math
to
is
be.
not mathing. Yeah.
No.
I wonder if the growth of productivity of AI can be channeled by forward thinking entrepreneurs. Canada has a huge range of entrepreneurs in many the different fields. But I want to ask you first. So you mentioned you're in the science business.
Mhm.
Um, how have you been leveraging AI for your business as well as.
Well, I mean, what never changes is kind of that proof of work that we talked about.
Mm,
Business and the nature of goods and services that the market wants tends to change over time and evolve. But fundamentally, you have to just compete to provide more value. Period. Like you have to bring more for less. You have to, be able to do more in a day with the same amount of time. So, like I said, we peeled our business back, and now we're kind of in growth mode. So we have different software management that has AI tools built into it. We're using OpenAI like everybody else. We're using Gemini, Google Gemini for, presentations and putting portfolios together and kind of customizing those portfolios and other jobs that we want to reference for each unique client. Our
nice.
outreach, has gone from, previously waiting for the phone to ring and, not being hunters and going out for new business to, I just brought on a sales rep who's doing 100 calls a week and, sending over 400 emails a week. And, we're booking calls and doing tag team calls, and then the AI takes the notes and, we can reference that in the future, so that we're more accurate. We can follow up without having to follow up and get prompted. So it's just anything you can do to be more organized, close more business, help that
Hmm.
business move through faster. We used Codex to build, my rep built it actually. He used Codex to build like a proprietary quoting software, and it
Nice.
over time, it'll intuitively learn how we like to price things out. It'll remember customers. It'll remember all the line items. So there's just a lot of monotonous work that we
Yeah.
weren't put on this earth to do. The idea is to amplify and leverage yourself to do the higher order things. And so our business has been pretty lean, so we're not looking to like lay people off because AI is taking jobs. We're looking to amplify what we can get done in a day and how much business we can close and deliver the customer experience that we want to deliver.
Okay, that sounds amazing. And obviously, so I've worked for a few years in commercial credit for small businesses, and we all know that financing is a huge deal for any entrepreneur. Um, how has the how has the high interest rate environment of the past few years impacted your business?
Well, I mean, commercial signage serves everybody in the economy. And I'd say when you're an economy or, a financial system that's built on debt, obviously there's going to be, sensitivities when interest rates rise. That's on the individual level, the business level, the government level. And so when interest rates rise, a lot of our clientele was, property managers.
Mm,
It's were owners and managers that would have like 15 to 100 apartment buildings, right?
okay.
And when interest rates go from 3 or 4% to 7%, your underwriting model looks a little bit different, and things are more stressed, and there's less real estate transacting. Just your pro forma and how things chalk up for starting a new business and opening a new store, and
Yeah.
everything just changes when the price of capital changes as well. So there's downstream effects, and it's amplified when it's again a debt based money, and everybody's highly levered, including the government. Um, so yeah, I would just say our business is fortunate though. We're pretty healthy in a diversification sense. Some industries slow down, other ones pick up. Funny enough, I talked about government spending being a big part. We've actually got a bunch of jobs with local region hospitals, like a lot of government contracts, which has kind of picked up in
Okay.
the last couple of years. But yeah, we try and stay diversified. We work with a lot of design firms, architect firms. So we try and diversify our dependency on any one kind of sector and
Yeah.
work with people that are working with other people, i.e., marketing firms, design firms, architects, contractors, and keep a healthy pipeline.
Okay. Nice. So you've touched a little bit about what I want to ask you next, and that is, um, so financing requires money, and I wanted to ask you, how would you explain to somebody who doesn't know how money works, what money is? How do would you explain to them how our current monetary system actually works?
So my approach over the years has really changed, and it's not about really what you say; it's how you say it and how
Yeah,
you customize. Who you're talking to. Are you talking to someone that's into finance, or an accountant, or a teacher, or a tradesman? So you really want to kind of customize how you're talking to people and how you're delivering the message in the way that they want to receive it, which sounds simple and obvious, and you've heard that in sales books, but it's really simple. You don't want to be talking like, everyone does on Twitter where it's like, let's end the Fed and, saying things like that just make people uncomfortable, especially in Canada. It's not
mm.
like that. So just really customizing how you want to deliver that message is really important.
And
But
also, what does it mean? Like, if you tell me "end the Fed" and I'm not really sure
what the Fed
how
is.
money works, what is it? Like, what does that mean? Like, you know?
I know. I know. So, I really, and honestly, I don't even say the word Bitcoin anymore.
Hmm.
With people that it's like a passing by conversation. There's no way I'm gonna say the word Bitcoin and try and justify Bitcoin to someone in a passerby conversation. Like I stopped doing that because it turned into, hey, Bitcoin's pretty important. You should maybe check it out. To, oh, I heard it's used by criminals, or bad for the environment, quantum, like insert any FUD that you want. And then it becomes,
Yeah,
they have an objection. You try and dissolve that objection for them. And it's a then they have another one, and then you try and dissolve that. But what they're really saying is, I'm not comfortable exploring this at this time.
yeah.
Um, I stopped doing that. And it was, how do I talk about Bitcoin without talking about Bitcoin? And, if you're a Bitcoiner, everything is downstream of the money. So it's like every conversation can relate to Bitcoin, but you really want to be careful, and you really want to take a long time preference on the people that you care about
Yeah.
to slowly bring them to understanding what is money, right? How did money look over time? Why did gold emerge as the best form of money or market chosen money? over thousands of years? And how does gold look, in the early 1900s, or, how did it look as money when information could move faster than money could settle? Right. And then depending on the person, you can talk about, well, you had to use paper to settle for gold because you can settle across the transatlantic in a cable faster than you can send a bar of gold. And so that kind of led to where we were today. You can get into, the creation of the central bank, Bretton Woods, 1971. But basically you just want to instill that, our money, it comes from debt. That base money requires inflation.
Yeah.
Without inflation, it unwinds. And that's very ugly and very bad. And so, every day, every year, as we get better at doing things, right? As entrepreneurs compete in the free market to provide value, prices should fall because you'll always buy the thing that gives you the most value. But because our debt based money is incongruent with prices falling, that is
Yeah.
effectively siphoned away from us collectively around the world. Life should be getting easier. Our food should be getting healthier. We should have more time on our hands for working out and family and friends and solving higher problems. It's the whole Jeff Booth thesis, right? It's technology is deflationary and prices should fall. I find once if you do a really good job just kind of explaining money through time, what led us to today, how it's
Yeah.
incongruent with AI, which is moving faster and faster, and people have fears of losing their job or how that's going to look into the future. So the better you deliver the first part of that, laying the groundwork, the more receptive understanding Bitcoin is. Because if you don't understand the problem, you're
Mm.
never going to understand Bitcoin as a potential solution.
Absolutely. And,
Yeah.
I agree with you that some of these dates are very important. Creation of the Federal Reserve, 1913, Bretton Woods in the mid 40s, the abolition of the gold standard, 1971. Like these three huge milestones, these explain why today inflation is constantly required. Not just, it's not a phenomenon that happens, it is required by this system to stay alive in a way. I was lucky enough to learn, what you said, that we live in a debt-based system that needs to keep expanding because it makes the debt, and so inflation makes the debt less heavy a burden on people who take on the debt. And
Yeah.
as I'm Lebanese and Canadian, I was lucky is a big word, but when I lived the collapse of the Lebanese pound, which is the local currency in Lebanon, my brother had taken a loan in local currency in order to buy a house. So it was like a subsidized loan by the government, denominated in Lebanese pounds. And say the monthly payment was the equivalent of $1,000 in the local currency. So when all this happened and the local currency collapsed, the same payment, the mortgage payment in that local currency, was now equivalent to $60. So in a way, you're still
Mm.
paying for your house. But then what my brother did is like he got, I don't know, $6,000 converted to Lebanese pound, which made a huge number, and he paid back the house. Obviously, this is kind of a
Mm.
glitch in the system in a way, but it made me kind of understand how if you keep inflating the currency, your debt becomes literally less
Mm.
of an issue related to the asset that you have. So that was definitely a very, very big lesson. And to touch on what you mentioned about not just AI but the gains of productivity pushing prices down, how would you explain, say, prices of items like TV or technology stuff becoming much more
Mm.
accessible than, say, health insurance, tuition fees for school, car
Yeah.
insurance? How would you explain
Mm.
that?
Yeah, there's good charts out there that show the prices of a whole range of goods and services, and some are rising a lot faster than others, and some are actually decreasing in fiat
Hmm.
terms, which it's quite uncommon. Things like TVs and computers are often point to storage, like hardware storage, like a gigabyte of data
Yeah,
storage has just collapsed over time. Um, there's Moore's law and, things where it's like the transistors in a chip double every 18 months or so, and the cost, falls or stays the same. And so, there's certain things that the free market and technology is able to get its tentacles on,
Yeah.
easier than other things. So even though the money supply is increasing, wherever you are in the world, it's a different number. Canada is 7, 8%. Historically, it's 7% in the US, and not sure what it is historically. Where you are, but so the measuring stick is the fiat instrument, and it's expanding. And some things can deflate faster or
Hmm.
increase their productivity faster than the number of units chasing it, right? And so other things on the other end of the spectrum, like housing, college or university tuition, healthcare, those are furthest away from the free market and they're more heavily regulated. There's
Hmm.
less competition. There's less of a vote that a customer or consumer or citizen can cast. Like they don't have to
Hmm.
earn your business at the hospital. You have to go
Right.
there unless you
Yeah.
want to go to the US or something, but they don't care because
Yeah.
they're
Yeah.
still getting paid. They still have their job. They don't have to compete in a free market to earn your vote. And so I would just say when there's more regulation, more taxes, more things preventing the free market from doing its thing,
Mm.
prices will rise more so than something that's closer to a freer market. But all those things are still built on top of money that is inflating and must lose value.
Yeah.
So unless you're reaching in sats, like housing's collapsing against against Bitcoin. TVs are collapsing even faster against Bitcoin than it is fiat, obviously. So it's choose your measuring stick is the point.
Yeah. And when I started learning about money, like I had never intellectualized that money is a medium of exchange, store of value, and a unit of account. And what really changed things for me is when I started to, not necessarily just with Bitcoin, but kind of comparing trading pairs, if you wish. Usually we're used to pricing everything in dollars, but when you price it in euros, when then you price it in gold, when you price an iPhone in dollar terms, sorry, in Bitcoin terms, you kind of see things that you cannot unsee. And so it's very interesting to use different, like not just the US dollar as a unit of account, but trying out other units of account. And obviously, many Bitcoiners use Bitcoin as a unit of account, and with some patience and some low time preference, they become
Yeah.
wealthier. Things are
Yeah.
cheaper for them because that, unlike the money supply, the Bitcoin supply cannot be inflated. At the contrary, it is decreasing in supply every 4 years. So all of these things are pretty
Mm.
fascinating, but not everybody has the interest. It feels like something more a finance major would be interested in or would be able to understand. However, while historically Wall Street and the finance people outrun retail investors, this has not been the case for Bitcoin. It has been quite the opposite. Just regular people
Mm.
kind of understood. They got into Bitcoin very early. They held, and now they can really reap the rewards of their patience and of being kind of a contrarian as well. But Wall Street is definitely here today. The ETFs have been here for around a couple of years. We have new big entrants like Morgan Stanley the past few days. Goldman Sachs mentioning this new ETF income product, and all of these Bitcoin related products by the biggest Wall Street firms. Um, you have as well companies like Strategy that now holds over 800,000 Bitcoin on their balance sheet, um,
Crazy.
offering products like, it is insane, huh? They offer innovative products like STRC, which some people will criticize as being a Ponzi, while other people will be happy to be paid a monthly and soon to be a bi-monthly generous interest rate compared to the treasury bonds, etc. Anyway, like there's so much stuff, and I want to know what are your
Yeah.
thoughts on all of this financialization of Bitcoin. How do you see it, the good, the bad? How do you see it progressing as well?
I oh yeah, there's so much there. I I appreciate the early OGs and cypherpunks that were around before Bitcoin was even around. And, we were kind
Yeah.
of building on shoulders of giants, and, one iteration and failure led to another. And that's kind of the story
Mhm.
of humankind is that. But, if you look at adoption curves, you've got the crazy people that adopt things first, then you got the tinkerers, and then you kind of move up the stack. And, if people truly want to fix the money and fix the world, I think it's pretty obvious that you need people in the world to use the money. And so,
Mhm.
we have an existing financial system now that first laughed at it, first ignored it, first made fun of it, first said it's just used by criminals. Every kind of FUD was thrown at it, and now the story's changing, and it's uh it's it's all the people that you said. It's governments around the world that are buying it quietly or publicly, mining it, attracting Bitcoin and broader digital assets to their region. There's
Mhm.
certainly, just by Bitcoin existing, it kind of incites that game theory of this is a fixed supply, digital, open, neutral network with instant settlement, and I don't need to trust who I'm trading with. The US can
Yeah.
trade with Iran, can trade with China, can trade with Canada, can trade with Australia, and there's no intermediary that can freeze it, shut it down, sanction it. So for the world that we're going into, it seems so obvious. These things will look so obvious to the everyday person in hindsight, like 50 years from now, like, oh yeah, obviously we can't settle with gold in the digital age, like obviously. And obviously, like why would people hold money that was currently like always debased? Like it doesn't need to be that complicated. Yeah, I mean, looking back with hindsight, it's going to seem so obvious.
Mhm.
But yeah, the financialization of Bitcoin, people are surprised that or not surprised, but upset that Wall Street's adopting it. But that was always going to happen. And these things are bottom up, top down. Creative destruction happens at the margin. And Wall Street's incentivized by fees. They have typically a 1 year time horizon.
Yeah.
And so Bitcoin will speak to them in a certain way. And who are we to project our values onto them at the same time, right? This is an open, neutral,
Mhm.
permissionless thing. And so my opinions might be different than someone in the global south, might be different than someone on Wall Street, might be different from someone in China or the Chinese government. So it's a tool, and everyone will use it to serve them in the way that they see
Yeah.
fit. So it's kind of hypocritical of Bitcoiners to project our values onto other people and how they should use this. And really, so long as Bitcoin stays decentralized and secure, and we scale in layers, and constantly look to improve and build, the rest will kind of take care of itself. But it was inevitable, is how I see it.
And for some people, it is a negative thing, whereas for some people, it served as a stamp of approval. Some people are not necessarily early adopters. They worry how to invest their money. They've heard all this negative thing, these negative criticism of Bitcoin, the money laundering, all of this without really understanding.
Hmm.
And so I think many people, it at least for me, I realized that I could um, I could explain Bitcoin, or I could show them a side of Bitcoin because of the ETFs, because of Wall Street, that some people were not ready to accept. Let's say when somebody like Larry Fink, when he says not financial advice, but you can own up to 5% of your portfolio in Bitcoin, a lot of people are going to listen to this kind of speech versus listening to I don't say a nobody, but just somebody telling them you need to buy Bitcoin, you need to. Some people are just like that.
For sure.
So that's one thing, and kind of what you said about game theory, nation states being able to transact together. I'm not sure it happened, but the big news last
Yeah.
week were the Iran and the Strait of Hormuz accepting Bitcoin for tolls.
Yeah.
I wish they would publish
Yeah.
their on-chain address so we can
Maybe they
check.
did at OTC.
What did you make of that?
I mean,
What
honestly,
did you make of that?
there's so much news in this day and age, and the Iran war in general is pretty opaque, and, I'm not gonna believe what Trump is saying or Iran is saying.
Yeah,
There's peace, there's not, there's a ceasefire, there's not, there's, it's open, it's closed. Now we're
yeah,
closing it. It's kind of humiliating for people to try and follow it and know what to believe.
yeah, right.
So I pretty
Mhm.
much stay out of it, you try and learn the basics and the geopolitical aspects and where their energy flows and who that might affect. But in
Yeah,
terms of worrying about the day to day, like watching the market swing around and oil go up 20, trade like a meme stock is just wild. And so I try and tune out the noise and have a general idea of what's going on. I get my
yeah.
40 hours of podcasts a week, but, I try and mix it up, and yeah, I try not to be too, politically charged and just neutral and have my own framework.
Good point. What I mostly liked about this whole thing is that it made people understand and think more about settlement, like nation states paying each other. It doesn't have to be the dollar. It can be the yuan. It can be Bitcoin.
Mhm.
It made people think about what is settlement between nation states. How does it
Yeah.
work? What's the corresponding bank? So that's what I like, and I've seen so many posts explaining that in the
Mhm.
simplest terms. So
Yeah.
again, all of these things that you take for granted that you don't really think about
There's so many things in
usually.
the world, especially since the start of COVID that are just screaming advertise for Bitcoin, like,
Yeah, yeah,
um, US sanctioning, different countries as an advertisement, the whole petrodollar system was built on, everybody settling with, US dollars, and in exchange, the
right.
US Navy would provide protection and in trade routes. But it's
Hmm.
on full display that the petrodollar is under attack, and this multipolar world is ever more. And, when a country who's been mining Bitcoin and probably has a nice stash, is my understanding anyways, when they
Yeah,
come out and say that, they're gonna accept Chinese yuan and Bitcoin, it's a pretty big FU to the incumbent, superpower. Their control greatly comes from everyone holding their debt and people transacting
right.
with their currency. And when you put on full display that you don't have control of trade routes and we're not using your currency, it's a pretty big
Mm,
milestone or flag post that I think will be looked back on, whether they're settling in Bitcoin or not. Even if they just say that they are, I
yeah.
think it's a pretty big signal anyways.
Yeah, absolutely. Back to small and medium businesses, what would you say are the different ways that a business can adopt Bitcoin? Say whether a treasury reserve asset, whether accepting payments, whether like a marketing thing,
Mm.
aligning with values. Can you talk about how how does this work from the viewpoint of a business owner, and also when and how should the business not adopt Bitcoin? Like, where does it not work as well?
Yeah, I'd say every business is so different, and it's a tool, so it can be
Mhm.
used in so many different ways. But I'd really say, like, the first step, if there's someone in the organization that's studied Bitcoin and always talking about it and passionate about it, the first step is trying to get the rest of your partners on board, board members on board. There has to be an educational journey that, frankly, takes 6 months to 2 years with someone that
Mhm.
is putting in the work and reading books, articles, podcasts. And, my business partner, who give him credit, he put in the work and, we were having 45-minute conversations, once a month, and he was reading and then he started sending me stuff. So to his credit, he did the work. But not everyone wants to put in the work. Not everyone's curious. Not everyone has the right incentives.
Yeah,
But foundationally, like it's not gonna, not every company is gonna be early to that. But I would just say having slow, consistent progress, incremental progress towards using Bitcoin. You can do things like, accept Bitcoin for payments and get on the Bitcoin Pay map. You can engage with it on social media. Like Steak and Shake is a really good example.
yeah,
They went to the Bitcoin conference and said they're going to accept Bitcoin, and any money that they accepted, they're going to hold. and they've grown their treasury reserves. All their revenue is up. They're renovating stores. They're using beef tallow instead of seed oil,
Yeah.
vegetable oil, or,
Hmm.
or whatever. And so just engaging and leaning in more and more, it'll only reward you and give back to you even more. So just small increments, and even when it seems like an uphill battle, when there's lots of people involved, just try and make progress, and do it in a holistic, non-pushy way.
Nice.
Yeah.
Um, I want to know before we wrap it up, what was your inspiration behind writing the Bitcoin Primer, what it is, and what can somebody expect if they read it?
Yeah, so it's basically it was the thing I wish I had back in 2012. When I was, getting out of school and not investing in Bitcoin. But yeah, it's really just when I have conversations with people, I take them on the path that I explained, which is understanding money in
Hmm.
the past, how it looks today, how money interacts with technology and the natural state of the free market, and then Bitcoin. And so the way I take them on the journey is that Bitcoin's not till the end. It's kind of like Lynn Alden's book, Broken Money. It's kind of like Jeff Booth's book, Price of Tomorrow.
Yeah,
He only had a paragraph in there because honestly, you don't need Bitcoin isn't going to stick, or it's not going to speak to anybody until they understand the problem. And the problems are quite
right.
simple. You know, Debt-based money requires inflation. Natural state of the free market's deflation. It's incongruent. Everyone's in the same game. And, as technology accelerates faster and faster, it's not a pretty picture looking into the future. So really, I care deeply about this, and I care, about my friends and family and business acquaintances, and just reinforcing a better future for my daughter and all that stuff. So I just felt compelled. I feel like I do a good job of not being too smart, but kind of more generally understanding a whole bunch of topics and bringing it
Yeah.
together and explaining it in a simple way. Um, so that's all it was. I consume a lot of content in terms of listening to podcasts and stuff, and I felt a duty of sorts to lean in a little bit and see what I could contribute.
Nice, and this is something that obviously we see a lot in Bitcoin circles. People actually care, like genuinely care about their family, about their close friends. Even you mentioned acquaintances. You mentioned your daughter. Obviously, people care about the future of all these loved ones, and so.
Yeah,
Um, Even if they won't necessarily adopt Bitcoin, I find it important to reach out and to explain to them why money works the way it works and what impact this has on you and your future.
yeah,
And then you're free to take a decision that will be aligned with your values. And should you decide that it is Bitcoin, like I'll be happy to explain further or to point you out to the good resources. So are you going to publish it? Like, what is it? Is it how many pages is the primer?
yeah. It just kept going, but I really wanted to have, it's a little bit longer than an article, but shorter than a book. It's like 30 pages.
Okay.
I put in some
Okay.
visuals, and I kind of, like I said, walk people through just the way that it's worked. I've probably had 75 to 100 conversations. When someone, it's just a beautiful conversation when someone's like, listen, I'm open, I'm neutral, I'm curious.
Yeah.
I want to learn about this. And they have a bit of a baseline of business or just generally how the world works. And it's just a
Mm.
beautiful flowing conversation. And it's not like objection point. It's just a free flowing, beautiful
Yeah,
conversation.
for sure. Yeah, for sure. Sean, looking forward to get it published so we can share it as well.
Yeah.
Um, do you have any final thoughts? Any plans? Anything you're looking forward to in the coming month that you want to share?
You know what? Just keeping up with the proof of work. I'm not working directly in Bitcoin, but I'm someone out there competing in the free market and trying to provide value. So I'm trying to grow our business, make it healthy, help more customers, that kind of thing. On the personal side, just trying to live a healthy, balanced life. It's a beautiful day today. I am golfing today, which would be great. I try
Nice.
and work out once or twice a week. I play basketball. I stay connected with friends and family. I've got a young daughter who's very active in horse riding and all these things. And um, my wife says we're due for a date night, so we'll probably be doing a date night soon. But just trying to live a healthy, balanced life. Lean more and more into Bitcoin, one step at a time. Yeah, just live with love and joy and curiosity and gratitude and all those good things, and good things will come.
This is so nice, and it all sounds very organic. So, best of luck for that, for the company, for everything else. And thank you for speaking to us today.
My pleasure, Michelle. Thanks for having me.
Oh.